Alex, is the Job Guide 360 interview guide worth it?
Honestly, yes, the guide is highly insightful. I recommend it to everyone.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are strapping in for a deep dive. We're looking at one of the most demanding high-stakes roles in tech right now, the user researcher. Specifically, inside a lightning-fast, maybe even chaotic startup.
Yeah, and this isn't just theory. We've actually synthesized the real expectations, the strategic thinking needed. This comes from a whole set of interview questions assessments used for this exact role. And what these questions really show is the mindset you need, how you succeed when, the stakes are high, budget's tight, and everything feels ambiguous.
Right. That's our mission here, to give you a shortcut to understanding those skills. It's about decoding the DNA of a researcher who doesn't just run perfect studies.
Exactly.
But knows how to use that knowledge to create real, measurable business impact, like right away. So let's start where every researcher really has to prove themselves, just mastering the basic craft.
Okay, so when a potential employer asks you, walk me through a recent end-to-end study, from problem framing to impact, they're looking for more than just a checklist of methods. They want the story, the translation. How do you turn user pain into something tangible, like profit or better retention?
And that story, that successful narrative, it needs numbers, right? It's not enough to just say, oh, I ran 12 interviews and did a workshop.
The strong example we saw was someone who clearly defined a retention problem, used those 12 deep interviews for insights, and then crucially tied that effort directly to shipping a change, like a simpler onboarding flow.
Exactly. And that simplification led to cutting week one churn by 14%. That is the language of business value. It shows you know how to frame a generative study, how to connect the synthesis to an actual solution, and then how to prove it worked using a real product metric.
Okay, 14% is massive, but I'm guessing getting everyone on board with simplifying something, especially if maybe the founder loves the complex version, that sounds like a bit of a political battle. How do they sell that finding, not just present it? That's the key difference, isn't it? The synthesis workshop wasn't just like documentation. It was designed as a tool for alignment. By having the designers and the product managers actually in the workshop, hearing the user cliffs, seeing the patterns emerge in real time, the research output suddenly becomes their recommendation too, not just the researchers.
Right, co-ownership. That makes it actionable.
Precisely. It builds that shared understanding.
Okay, but let's be real. Startups rarely just hand you a neat retention problem on a plate. What if you join a company that hasn't even found product market fit yet? And the prompt is super vague, like, help us figure out who our early adopters are. Total chaos.
That is the ultimate test, right? Creating structure where there's none. And honestly, the only way forward is to start hypothesizing fast. You begin by looking at whatever weak signals you do have. Who's signing up? Even if it's just a few. What are people saying in support tickets? Those become your first rough guesses at segments.
So you're not waiting for perfection, for some perfectly validated segment. You're just using the scraps of data you have to, draw a starting line.
Exactly. Then you run really rapid screener-based interviews, maybe 8 to 10 per segment you've guessed at. The focus is speed, not exhaustive depth at this stage. And the goal isn't some final, polished customer profile. It's about delivering something tangible, quickly. Maybe some proto-personas, a basic jobs-to-be-done map.
So you're defining success differently. It's not about solving the whole mystery, but just narrowing the focus, giving the team a clearer idea of the ideal customer profile to build towards.
That's it, and maybe a repeatable way to recruit more people like that going forward. You essentially turn the fog into a path you can actually start walking down.
But you still need to walk that path incredibly fast. Which brings us to the pace.
Yeah, the moment you talk about speed and deep discovery together, you feel that tension, don't you? How do good researchers manage that balance? The big, generative, strategic work versus the constant demand for quick evaluative tests needed for those relentless 2-week sprints. You really need a dual-track system. It has to be baked in. The big why questions, the generative discovery, that should probably be tackled quarterly. Focused on bigger themes that tie directly into the company's OKRs, the main goals. That runs alongside the sprint-level evaluative stuff, which is all about feeding immediate design decisions and handoffs.
And the reality of those sprints means strict time boxing, I imagine. You have to commit to really lightweight tests.
Absolutely. 5 to 7 users is often enough for evaluative feedback, and critically, you need to run them mid-sprint, not right at the end. Otherwise, you just block the release.
Okay, so let's talk about a real pressure cooker situation, one that probably happens more than we'd like. You've got 48 hours. Just 48 hours to validate a critical design decision before a major release. No time for perfect research, but the stakes are sky high.
Oh yeah, the nightmare scenario.
I can just feel the pressure of that deadline. Is the biggest challenge actually finding 5 or 7 qualified users and getting them scheduled in time?
It absolutely is. That scenario tests everything, not just your methods, but your whole research operation setup. Your plan has to be incredibly lean, but still solid enough to give a confident go-no-go recommendation. Usually the winning strategy involves about 5 remote, moderated sessions, really tightly focused on the key task, maybe supplemented with an unmoderated test running at the same time, just for an extra bit of signal.
Wow, sounds like sprinting on a tightrope.
It kind of is. And crucially, the output needs to be immediate. A decision log, the key findings shared within hours. And you must communicate that go-no-go with really clear caveats. You have to tell the team, here's the residual risk because we couldn't test everything perfectly. It's all about minimizing risk, not pretending you've eliminated it.
Makes sense. And look, if you want that seat at the decision-making table, you can't just bring stories. You need to speak the language of the business, which means metrics. How do the best researchers effectively combine the qualitative insights with product analytics? So it's one strong recommendation, not 2 separate reports.
It's all about triangulation, really, and telling a compelling story with both kinds of data. You might start with analytics. See a pattern, like say a huge drop-off at step 3 in the sign-up funnel. The data tells you what is happening. Then you run task-based usability sessions. You watch people try that step. That gives you the why, the confusion, the friction, the root cause.
Okay, got it. And the final piece, closing the loop with the data analyst seems critical.
Yes, absolutely. You partner with them to estimate the potential impact of your suggested fix quantitatively. How much could this improve things? And then, crucially, you track the metrics after the fix goes live to prove the value. That whole cycle, data points to a problem, qual explains the why, data proves the solution worked, that builds incredible credibility across the entire company. Undeniable, really.
But when you're in that startup environment, surrounded by engineers, designers, everyone's busy, everything feels urgent, you could research 100 things. How do you prioritize when the noise level is just so high?
Yeah, you definitely can't just listen to the loudest voice in the room. You need a system, a transparent framework for making those calls. Many successful researchers adapt something like a RICE score, but specifically for learning opportunities. So instead of just revenue, you focus on impact on the big strategic goals, the risk if you get it wrong, which is high when uncertainty is high, the effort needed to do the research, and the team's current confidence level.
Okay. So you're deliberately not just researching the easy stuff, you're targeting the areas where the company is placing its biggest bets but has the least certainty. That's how you actually de-risk the roadmap.
Exactly. You focus your limited resources where the learning will have the biggest strategic impact.
Okay, now let's get into the landmine zone. Influence and conflict. How do you handle it when your research findings clash directly with strongly held opinions, maybe even from the founder, about their pet feature?
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. This tests your maturity, your ability to separate ego from the business needs. The core strategy is always to reframe the conversation. Get it away from your feature is bad and focus it on a shared objective goal, a key metric like activation or repeat usage that everyone, even the founder, agrees is critical.
So you make the metric the problem, not the feature itself.
Precisely. And then you bring the user's voice into the room, but strategically. Not some long, boring report. Share short, powerful video clips showing actual users getting confused or frustrated with that beloved feature. Let the user deliver the bad news, not you.
Smart. That takes the adversarial heat off the researcher. And then maybe instead of demanding a huge redesign right away, you offer a smaller step.
Exactly. Offer a compromise. A low-risk experiment, like a simple A/B test, to validate the simpler approach your research suggests. It keeps things moving, builds trust. And that applies more broadly, too. When you have any unpopular findings, always frame the bad news in terms of business risk. This current design, it's adding, say, 20% friction at checkout. And immediately follow that with options. A quick fix we can do now, a medium-term redesign, maybe a longer-term strategic rethink. Never just drop a problem on the table without potential paths forward.
Makes sense. Okay, stepping back a bit. If you're the first researcher hired at a startup, the expectation isn't just run a great study, it's build the whole research function. What are, say, the top 3 non-negotiable things you must set up in your first 90 days to get a real, even if lightweight, research practice going?
Number 1, absolutely foundational. Ethical data handling and speed. That means getting a participant panel set up, even a simple one, with crystal clear consent forms and processes. You need a way to reach users ethically and quickly. Second, you need a single source of truth for insights. A searchable repository could be Notion, Dovetail, whatever works, but somewhere insights live, are findable, and don't just disappear into slide decks. Prevents doing the same research over and over.
That accessibility bit is huge, especially when the team inevitably starts talking about democratizing research. If PMs or designers start running their own quick tests, how do you keep the ethical guardrails up, especially around privacy?
Yeah, that's where clear policy and some coaching come in. It's a huge operational task. You need a written data handling policy. We've seen examples where a stakeholder wants to merge support ticket emails with research signups just to get more participants, but without getting explicit consent for research contact.
Oof, yeah, that's a massive compliance headache waiting to happen and just breaks trust.
Totally. Your job as the researcher is to firmly but clearly stop that plan. Explain the risks, compliance, trust, brand damage. Then you hope to set up a proper way, maybe a reconsent campaign offering clear value for opting into research. Data needs to stay properly segmented and permissioned. Protecting that integrity is non-negotiable even, or maybe especially, when everyone's screaming for speed.
Absolutely. Okay, finally, in these startup roles, researchers wear so many hats, collaboration is key. How do you weave research so tightly into the product team that you're seen as a co-creator, not just like an optional service?
It really starts from day one, co-creating the research questions with the PM so they feel ownership right from the beginning, involving engineers early, just for feasibility checks on design ideas. Nothing worse than researching something you find out later can't even be built reasonably. And running regular, maybe monthly insight sharing sessions, not just with product, but with sales and support too. They're your eyes and ears on the ground. They have so much context.
And sometimes you might even step outside your core role just to keep things moving, right? I've heard of researchers mocking up lo-fi prototypes themselves because the design team was swamped just so a crucial test could happen. That shows serious commitment.
It really does. As long as you're clear about the boundaries, hey, I did this as a one-off to unblock us, doesn't mean I'm now a designer. That kind of flexibility proves you're all in on moving the product forward together. #outro.
So when you pull this all together, what does it really mean? Being a user researcher in a fast-paced startup today sounds like this intense hybrid role. You need the rigor of a scientist, almost academic, asking unbiased questions, recruiting ethically, analyzing carefully. But you have to do all of that with the speed and, frankly, the scrappiness of a hacker.
It really is a dual identity. You're part scientist, understanding deep methodology, and part diplomat, navigating business risk and internal politics. And the examples we looked at show this role isn't just nice to have, it's core to making smart strategic bets. Triggering a product pivot that boosts activation by 18%. That's tangible impact driven by research.
And the fundamental challenge, the thing you constantly have to manage, seems to be that built-in conflict. You need to scale knowledge fast, often by democratizing research, coaching others to do bits of it. But at the same time, you absolutely have to maintain the quality bar, ensuring the insights are actually reliable and ethically gathered.
That is the tightrope walk. You have to empower the whole company to connect with users, but you, as the researcher, are ultimately the guardian of quality and integrity, balancing that relentless demand for speed against the need for robust, ethical insight. That's the crucial skill, the constant tension you need to master in this field today.